I should have grabbed something else to drink too. I always end up like running out of shit to drink like halfway through the show. And that doesn't matter because I always have to take a piss. These things are going to run long enough now to where
last week was
to have to just get up in the middle of it and take a piss. So I better start putting like posters and shit behind me. I definitely need some. No, you know what I need behind me? The scene from Basic Instinct where she does like the leg spread, but all you can see behind me is just her sitting in the chair, and you don't know it's that scene, so that when I stand up and like leave, it's just like full on puss. I think that would be fucking amazing.
Did your phone bleep at you?
Yeah, it did.
Nice. Number one, last week was the first episode in which I ran out of stuff to drink before we were done. First time for everything. Number two, you're familiar with pro wrestling commentator Jim Ross?
Yes, of course.
Good old JR?
No, I have no idea who that is.
What? Are you familiar with when Undertaker threw Mankind off the Hell in a Cell? And JR was like, by God, he's broken in half. I think they killed him. Like he was losing He was losing his shit. He's like, oh my God.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
He actually yelled out holy shit, and they had to bleep it. They had to censor it. JR has gone on, Jim Ross has gone on record more than once as saying he would wear dark colored pants and just pee himself when he's commentating something like WrestleMania, because it is discouraged for the commentators to get up and go take a leak. What if something happens to hold them up and they don't make it back in time? That would ruin Vince McMahon's shit. He doesn't want that. So he would discourage them from peeing for this entire 4-hour WrestleMania. So JR's like, well, what the hell else am I going to do? Wear dark pants so it doesn't show up as well when I relieve myself on the job.
He just pisses like right in his chair?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no adult diaper or anything like that. I mean, there's other ways of handling piss than just pissing all over where you're sitting and just sitting in your own piss for 3 hours. That doesn't seem good either. What if you had a really bad Taco Bell night the night before? What are you supposed to do then?
Now I want to look into this because somebody probably asked him that at one point. Maybe he would get diaper rash from 4 hours of the adult diaper versus it wouldn't be so bad with just pants somehow. I don't know. I don't know.
That's a whole world that we're going to have to delve into sometime, I guess.
Maybe he just wanted an excuse to piss his pants. Maybe he finally realized you ain't cool unless you pee your pants.
But usually you want to do it on somebody, or unless you're like one of those diaper people, then you just want to piss in a diaper.
My Strange Addiction, and what was the taboo one?
The taboo one.
There was a show, like a Netflix show with taboo in its title, where it's like these people just live these lives where it's normally taboo, but we're like, we don't care. We do what we want.
That's like the internet. That's everything on the internet since the late 90s.
My girlfriend from like 10, 11 years ago was into those shows. And so I remember seeing at least one episode where a full-grown dude was like, I'm a baby. I live as a baby. I sleep in a crib.
There was a guy locally who fucking lost a job because it was discovered he was like one of the diaper people. And he lost a pretty good job, and he ended up just having to work a shit job after that.
That sucks.
And what sucks, though, is the judgment everybody's giving him, too.
I wouldn't.
Because the other job that he got was a very public location, so I guarantee he was running into people he knew all the time. And most of those people are just like, diaper guy.
Hey there, still wet in them drawers, huh? Yeah.
I always thought I'm just like, whatever, it's diaper guy. But that's the other thing, too. Guy. Even though I'm not one of these people sitting here judging him, to me, he will always be diaper guy now. If I'm talking to somebody, I'll be like, yeah, I saw a diaper guy. That's not to disparage his extracurriculars in any way.
All right. Yeah, And I got this.
There's a whole community. Like, who am I to judge an entire community of people? There's something to it. I can't identify. You know what it's like? It's like when you watch a dog eating its own shit. Like when the dog turns around and starts sniffing it and then just eats its own shit. And you're just like, that's really disgusting. But dogs have the best sense of smell in the world. You know he's smelling something absolutely fucking delicious that your puny little human nose will ever comprehend. And so you're just kind of like, there's something there.
Welcome to Mindful 90s.
Oh, yeah. We're doing a podcast. All right. Do you want to start this thing? Should we just start this thing?
Let's start this thing.
Do you got a rhyme ready?
I do.
Okay. All right. I'm going.
Welcome to the Mindful 90s podcast, the only podcast that covers every 90s topic from blowing the president and lying in court to sweating to the oldies in your little stripy shorts.
That was a good Richard Simmons reference. Did you ever look more into that after that show?
A little bit. The headline was from like 4 weeks ago, and then like another week later, he just popped out of nowhere again, just to say I've been made fun of a lot over the decades, but you know what? I'm me. I like being me, so I don't care if people make fun of me.
That's what I was saying last week. I'm like, don't let these idiots chase you away.
I was slightly off with my reporting. I said he popped out of obscurity to say, I'm not okay with this. I don't approve this. All he really said was, I have not given any, no one's asked me for approval for this, and I haven't given approval for this. So I had kind of given it like a snippy tone. He wasn't really snippy about it. He was just saying, I'm not okay with it for what that's worth.
Does he get royalties from that?
I would think he would fucking have to.
If you're doing a biopic on somebody's life, is the subject
right?
Does the subject get something? I don't know. I don't know how that all works.
People sue for unauthorized use of likeness all the time, so that's what that would be. He could sue him, so there has to be something worked out. Yeah, man. So that's that about that. I've been bringing in things for weeks now that I've been meaning to like show people, hey, remember this thing from the 90s? And I'll set them here on the floor next to my desk. And I keep forgetting to show this stuff week after week because I'm so in the zone of whatever you're talking about or trying to remember my own topics.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Andy has quite the collection of stuff that probably should have gotten thrown away decades ago, but he just like clings to it. Well, the thing you have in your hand right now, though, that doesn't look like something you should throw away. Yeah, that's just something that belongs on a bookshelf. Saturday Night Live, the first what?
The first 20 years. They put it out the summer between season 19 ending and season 20 beginning. So it's really the first 19 years, but if they want to say 20, whatever, who am I to stop them? It's kind of an encyclopedia, kind of just a summarization of cast members, their years, their tenures, their most popular characters, fun facts and trivia.
Is it mostly just an almanac?
Yeah. Thank you. It's an almanac. I bought it from Media Play in Appleton. I think we mentioned that at least on one other episode before. Boy, do I miss that place.
Well, what were the highlights from the book? Did you ever read it?
I haven't like read it, but it's been a while. I don't really remember what the highlights were. I just kind of became familiar. One of the highlights was when I was looking at this book when I first got it, finding out that guys like Gilbert Gottfried and Robert Downey Jr. were on the cast for like one season. I'm like, I did not fucking know that. I didn't know that Mr. Bill was originally an SNL skit. I had seen it in pop cultures in other capacities. I didn't know it started on SNL.
I've only seen it on SNL. What else has it been on?
They used it for some commercials, if I'm not mistaken, and like I know my teachers have like said, "Oh no, Mr. Bill," just like humorously for no reason, and so I knew it existed before I ever knew it was an SNL skit.
Yeah, SNL used to be a pretty cool show. It used to be. It used to be a cultural phenomenon. Nowadays, everybody just shits on it. I mean,
it used to be a good show, or so the myth goes.
Well, so Shane Gillis was back on the show.
Did you watch it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I don't give two fucks about Saturday Night Live. Shane Gillis going on Saturday Night Live, because if he was actually going to fuck around, like if he did something really heroic and got up while it was taping and started doing a racist Chinese voice for his opening monologue, the very thing that got him canceled in the first place, that would have been fucking cool. But I knew he was just going to get on there and just kind of play ball. And
well, sir, egg on your face, he got away with saying in the monologue, retarded.
Yeah, I know. But that's his whole... Have you ever heard his podcast?
I know of it. I haven't actually listened to it.
Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. That stuff like that is just thrown around constantly. It's not even... The fact that you brought that up and you're like, ooh, isn't it edgy of him to say retard, just shows that how much of a non-show Saturday Night Live really is. The fact that would be, oh, he said retarded, oh my God, on Saturday Night Live. That's why I didn't watch it, because I just don't give a fuck about Saturday Night Live anymore. If Shane Gillis had shown up on like Jimmy Fallon or something, I wouldn't have watched that either. I just don't care about TV stuff anymore. I haven't for like 20 years.
I feel the same way about current late night shows as you do about current late night shows and current Saturday Night Live. I still give Saturday Night Live a chance. I still watch it every week.
You watch it every week?
I still watch it every week, yeah.
Oh, God.
For better or worse, many times in the last 15 years, I've said, I got to stop watching this show. It's more of a bother than a pleasure.
Why are you doing that to yourself?
And then it'll get better. Well, for one thing, I had stopped watching for many years until Andy Samberg came along and changed the game fucking completely. That's what brought me back in. As soon as Andy Samberg and all of his contemporaries started leaving, that's when I started losing interest again. But then
Saturday Night Live was just full of the most insufferable people. And that's why nobody who was serious about comedy gives a shit about Saturday Night Live ever. And they make it very clear that people who are on Saturday Night Live are basically E-tier comedians as far as like the real comedians are concerned.
It's hard to say why I went back to watching that, but I never went back to watching The Simpsons after I kind of gave up on that after like 12 years. Just one of those things. Well, Andy Samberg, like I said, brought me back in. But after he left, I don't know. I guess I was back in the habit of watching it. And
every once in a while, they get legit funny people on there. Like Samberg's a legit funny dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess SNL is kind of like pro wrestling in the sense that you want to know who's going to show up, what they're going to do.
Why do you want to know that? Like, why?
I don't know. Why anything? Okay, so I got the SNL book. I've got this Wrestle Buddy.
Ooh. Sting.
That is Sting, who...
Why does it say shake me? What does it do if you shake it?
He will make noises, and it's difficult to shut him off, so I don't really want to make him do that right now.
Oh, God, I want a Shakira wrestling buddy that says shake it.
Oddly enough, Sting is retiring from pro wrestling later this week. He's with AEW Wrestling now, and his retirement match is this upcoming Sunday night. As you can see, he kind of looked like the Crow, because after his what was called Surfer Sting got old, that was when he had like a blonde. It was kind of a flat top, but not like a generic lame flat top. It was just kind of beach blonde, beach hair. After that got old, he did a rip off of the Crow, and then when that got old, he did a rip off of Heath Ledger's Joker. Just kind of blatantly, he's like, whatever, it's fun. He didn't really care.
So he just always ran around in face makeup.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's never not wrestled in makeup that I know of. Back in the old days, he was actually in a tag team with the Ultimate Warrior. That's some super old trivia. But yeah, I have that Wrestle Buddy, and I also have a John Cena Wrestle Buddy at home. I think I might have mentioned that on a previous episode. So I still, they seem like they're not as big as the Hogan and Macho Man ones from the early 90s.
I thought that looked small. And then I didn't know if it was just because they look bigger when you're a kid.
That's exactly what I was getting at. It's hard to know for sure, but my money is on they scaled them down in size, just, cut costs, cheaper product. So yeah, I still to this day do not have the Wrestle Buddies I really want, but I've got some decent ones.
Are those things worth money now? If you go on eBay and look for them, are they actually worth something?
I want to say like Macho Man and Warrior from 1990 are going for like $175. Wow. I'm pretty sure. I need to figure out a way to get this clean.
What do you mean? Just take a Q-tip to it.
If you look at their faces, there's like a dirtiness that I can't really seem to get off. And I just need to find the right cleaning product probably. Believe me, I took like rags and you can't feel it. There's no texture to the dirtiness. So I don't know.
Are you sure it's not just the paint that's failing?
It might be I don't know. I'm not sure, I guess.
Show and tell with Andy. Is that all you got?
No, I have one other thing. It's also SNL related. I just came across this today. I was looking through boxes for that Crow shirt where I said it was just his eyes and it was a long sleeve black shirt. Uh-huh. I still haven't gone through every box, so it might still be buried somewhere. But something I did come across is this Trapper Keeper. Who had this Trapper Keeper in the 90s?
I know I had a couple of them. What's on there? Is it just nothing? Is it just...
I started turning it into a binder for my Simpsons trading cards, which is why I started taking cutouts from Simpsons magazine and inserting them into the, whatever you want to call it, not laminate, but vinyl. And then I looked in it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I collected a run of Saturday Night Live trading cards from 1992. And as I'm looking through it, I'm like, how did I forget? I actually had the complete set. The complete set is 150 cards, and I have all of them.
How much are those worth on eBay?
Good question. I have no idea. I didn't look. They're all in like mint condition, even though they were stored in the same boxes as a lot of my stuff that is not in good condition anymore because it was stored in some places that were not like temperature regulated. So as they weathered the seasons, froze, unfroze, moisture, you name it. It's all a matter of, was it in a box that was off the ground and surrounded by a lot of other boxes? That's probably what this was, which is why it's still in good condition. This beautiful framed collage that I made of King of the Hill ad clippings from TV Guide, it got destroyed. My heart sank when I discovered that, and it had been ravaged by mold and rats and stuff. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Because I guarantee you that it's the only one like it. No one else ever made that.
That's probably true.
Yeah. I mean, if someone were to dump infinity of free TV Guide magazines from the late 90s onto me, I could recreate it, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think if you wanted to buy an old TV Guide, it would probably cost however much they sell old magazines for.
They're probably not that much.
And I came across something else over here. There you go.
What's that?
Just a thing. You have to read it.
Corey, giving you a leap day gift seemed like a no-brainer because being generous and nice to a fellow like you once every 4 years seems exactly right. Still too much. Never forget 1997.
Hashtag. Yes.
Oh. Hashtag never forget 1997. Insert sound clip of Diley laughing like Waldorf and Statler. A leap year gift? Is it socks? I hope it's socks or booties or something I can leap in. Trying to open this on camera. A towel!
I don't know if you have one of those, but if you don't, now you do. And if you had one, now you have two.
A Super Bowl Packer towel?
Title towel. I know the Packers winning that Super Bowl was apparently a big deal to you.
Did they Did they try to rip off the terrible towel with this? Was the terrible towel even a thing? Did the terrible towel get an idea from this?
We need a third guy sitting on the side during these podcasts. Like Joe Rogan has. Every time you need something looked up, our guy can look it up for us. When I was looking through my boxes of stuff and I was looking for the Crow shirt, I came across my SNL trading cards. I came across that and it instantly clicked with me. I'm like, wait a minute. I should give that to Corey because it's better than it just being in a box. And figured it would mean something to you since you...
Oh, you know what? I'll just put it up behind me now. I'll hang it up behind me.
Here's the thing. I figured that's the first idea that came into my head. That could be your first flare. But what about this? What if every time we go live, we keep it right in the middle of the table where it's within both of our reach? And when you say something I don't like, I can grab it and throw it at you and say foul on the play. And you can do the same when I say something that you don't like. It's just an idea.
You mean like...
It was just an idea.
Saying that Nirvana's simplistic? Yeah, I'll keep the towel over here for that.
Oh, mother. So...
Well, that's pretty cool. Thank you. Thank you for the leap year gift.
You're welcome.
I'm looking forward to next year's leap year gift. Don't forget.
No, you're not. You're looking forward to 2028's leap year gift.
Yeah, I will put this up. I'll put this up over Sharon Stone's face when I do I'll make her look prettier.
There you go.
With the Packer Super Bowl towel. All right.
She was pretty. Michelle Pfeiffer was a little prettier, maybe. Anyways, should we get right into topics, or was there anything else you wanted to... Oh, we got a Dilehey call in.
Oh.
Which I'm going to very reluctantly let you play, even though after that Valentine's thing, if you're going to throw out your voice cheering too hard for Taylor Swift and jeopardize your job of doing
Dilehey,
call-ins,
come on, man. I cheered for her all night long, and I didn't throw out my voice.
You drank lemonade. You had throat lozenges. You were ready to go.
I was still ready. I was still ready to sing her songs if it came on the radio. You, my friend, were not. You were not ready to sing along with Taylor on the radio.
I think he's on thin ice now more than he's ever been. So, depending on how this call-in goes, it'll sway my decision of keeping him employed for this job we don't pay him for.
All right.
Hello, Mindful 90s podcast. It's Dilehey. How's the podcast going? Are the numbers good? Oh, they're good. That's great.
The fuck is this?
Give me another chance. Please. Don't fire me from doing these call-ins. Just give me another chance. I know you're always looking for fans to call in and say interesting and funny stuff. I could be that fan. I could start doing funny bits about visiting our grandmas in the 90s.
Anytime you want to start.
Freezy Pops and Gushers fruit snacks. Come on, please. Let me keep doing the call-ins. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a call on the other line. Here, I'll put it on speakerphone.
The other line.
Hold on. Let the boy keep doing the call-ins. That's all. Yeah. It makes him feel good. He got funny ideas, and even when he doesn't have funny ideas, he does it anyway, because he cares. For the love of God, don't leave this poor boy out in the streets like a hobo with no phone, because then he can't call anybody. You vicious bastard! Let him do the call-ins. Good Lord. I'm not going to beg you. I think my dependable track record for calling in every week speaks for itself. I'm confident you'll make the right decision.
If you got to say one thing about Dilehey, he is pretty dependable.
Hurley boy.
Dilehey boy.
All right. That was a good 90s Saturday Night Live bit.
He reminded me that in the 90s, life was good when you visited your grandma and she gave you Gushers fruit snacks and like Kit Kats and Nutty Bars, stuff like that. Maybe we should talk about that kind of stuff more often. Really bring back those fuzzy memories for the listeners.
That's bonus material shit.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. So who went first last time? I think
Yeah, I only did one last week.
Well, then you should definitely go first, as long as you want to.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to do this topic because I already thought about it and made notes on it. But this was supposed to follow my Monica Lewinsky topic. So it's kind of a little out of place here, but I'll just start with it. And then my second topic will just kind of follow off of this because it's somewhat political. Look, anything I bring in that's going to be political from the 90s, I am going to shit on all day long. But I think it's important to talk about because it's interesting. It's all about being mindful. It's all about remembering how certain things formed you as a human being going forward and coming out of the 90s.
For sure.
So that's kind of what this story is. It's not really, it's only somewhat connected to the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. So last week I talked about the first lady of American politics in the 90s, Monica Lewinsky.
Before we start and before I cover it up, I'm wearing another Wien t-shirt. Just wanted everyone to know that. Sorry, before you got into your thing. And now I'm bundling up because it's like below, it's 20 degrees outside, maybe a little less. Okay.
Andy needs more attention for his shirts than Monica Lewinsky needed with the president. So Monica Lewinsky. At the end of the 90s, no, this would have been like the middle of the 90s. I had a job working at a Wendy's in Stevens Point. And that was the first time that I worked in an environment with other adult human beings who you worked with long enough that they would give you little glimpses into their personal lives and their personal beliefs. And anybody will do that, any of your coworkers, if you work with them long enough. And this was the first time that I had a job where I could work like 8 hours a day and actually get to know these people. So when we worked at Wendy's, of course, all we did was get high for the most part, because it's just a dumb job. It's not anything that you take seriously. You have to wear a uniform. You have to wear a name tag. Nobody takes that shit seriously.
It had to have been an employee who was high that came up with the idea for the Baconator. It had to have been.
Probably most of the fast food shit that they come up with is geared towards high people. Like, there's no way that it's
And I have to assume invented by high people who were employees.
So most of us were just there to fuck around. Anybody who was between the ages of 15 and 21 was just there to fuck around. Nobody took that shit seriously. But in any job, there is always the old timers that have been there for a pretty good length of time. And there were a few women who worked there who had been there for quite a few years. And these were older women. And yeah, we got along with them just fine. There's nothing weird about it. But when the Monica Lewinsky thing was going on, or it must have just been wrapping up, or no, it was just starting to break. I was just fucking around and making fun of like Monica Lewinsky, whatever. I made there was a girl who used to come into Wendy's who was fucking hot, like 12 out of 10 hot. And everybody who worked there was always like, and we had a nickname for her because she stood out because she was so hot. This is central Wisconsin, and she was California hot. Like, we have Wisconsin hot, little chubby, but you know, if they have a pretty face, it's good. If it's a woman who's 5'5" and doesn't weigh more than, say, 160 pounds, that's Wisconsin hot. She is smoking. This girl was California hot.
Cheers.
And we had a nickname for her, and I don't remember what we called her. And I tried to rack my brain trying to figure it out. Don't remember. Anyway.
We'll call her Betty Nugs.
She came in one day and everybody was just like, hey, so-and-so girl's here, whatever her nickname was. And everybody is just like, yeah, so-and-so girl, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to make her an intern. Or if I was president, she would be my intern in like 2 seconds. It was just a dumb throwaway joke like that. And of course, everybody in the kitchen's like, oh, ha, 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 just completely stupid joke. One of these women really took issue with this joke. And she's just like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? Don't you know that this whole thing with Monica Lewinsky is just a right-wing Republican conspiracy to bring down our president? And she was mad about it. And I was taken aback. I'm like, what? Who gives a fuck?
Just to be clear, this is a coworker.
Yeah, this is a coworker.
Probably older than you by a bit, but
she was in her 60s at the time. She's probably dead now.
She didn't have any kind of seniority over you, did she?
No. Okay. This is fucking fast food. This is the union. So yeah, she had no seniority. She was just
setting the scene here.
This older woman who I thought it was really inappropriate. And by the way, she's talking to somebody who is always making just off-color jokes for people in the kitchen. We all did that. It wasn't a big deal.
You were like 17, right?
But
it's what you do.
Yeah, right. But this one got to her. Oh, don't you know that it was just a Republican right-wing conspiracy? I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. Anyway, who cares? I mean, it was the first time I had ever been exposed to this weird phenomenon of this compulsion that we all see all around us today, where people are driven to have to defend politicians. Like if you say anything bad about a particular like nowadays it's all Biden and Trump people. If you say the wrong thing in front of a Trump person, oh Jesus, look out, they're going to make sure that you have all your facts. And that's what this was. But this was the first time I'd ever seen it. We didn't have social media back then. This is the first time that you're exposed to somebody's political beliefs. Normally people just keep that shit in the closet where it belongs, right, and they don't come out with it.
Or if you and your group of friends ever talk about it, you probably all agree on the same shit.
For the most part. I mean, we would argue about shit all the time, but so in this case, I was completely blown away. I'm just like, who cares? What has Bill Clinton ever done for you? I didn't say this to her, but I was thinking it. I'm like, what has he ever done for you that you feel this compulsion to defend him? Didn't understand it. But what I did say to her, and I was just like, well, what was the conspiracy? Was like him getting a BJ? Was that all like some conspiracy? Or what else did I say? I really made fun of her for saying something so dumb too. I was like, oh, did he accidentally slip and the Republicans put her mouth there and he accidentally like stuck his wiener into his mouth?
And she's like,
something
yes,
like that. And she was just like, no, they put her there knowing that she was going to try to seduce him and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all he had to do was say no. Like he didn't have to do any of that shit. Why do you care so much? And once I said that to her, I could tell she was like really upset, but she had nothing to say because I was just like, all he had to do was say no. This isn't like a big conspiracy. This isn't a big plot. This is still a Bill Clinton issue. But I think she saw Bill Clinton as just this young, good-looking guy that played the sax and he was really outgoing and he knew all the right things to say. That was her image of this guy. And for whatever reason, the whole idea that he would fuck around on his wife and not take his marriage seriously really got to her for whatever reason. Whereas me, I'm just like, yeah, I totally get why you would fuck around on your wife. I mean, she's hideous. She's awful. You totally understand that as a dude, but I think she just had this weird mental image of Bill Clinton. But have you ever heard anybody do that for like a movie star or any other really famous person in society, usually people don't give enough of a fuck where they're just like, yeah, I don't care. You could be the biggest Ray Rice fan in the world and still not defend him punching out his girlfriend in an elevator, right? Nobody was defending that.
Voting does something to people's minds, man.
It's weird, but that's the weird thing about it. That was the first time I'd ever been exposed to this, this whole idea where people really have to step up and defend this person. And I don't know if it's some kind of moral conflict that exists within themselves. And like I said, I've seen this with Trump people a million times where you'll bring up something bad about Trump and they have a million reasons why he had to do it that way. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you like? Who cares?
And they're the best reasons. I'm told all the time that they're the best reasons.
I mean, Trump can defend himself. He doesn't need people defending him. And you see it all the time with Biden too. It's just so bizarre. You'll see right wingers make fun of Biden for pooping his pants or falling down a flight of stairs or whatever, getting into an airplane. And people on the left will just come out and be like, they'll either pretend that it never happened, or deflect by saying, well, Trump, blah, 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 as though you're defending Trump in any way. So the era that we live in, we were being kind of prepared for this because this was already starting to come to light with certain people in the 90s. Now with younger people, because I think we still weren't paying enough attention to politics yet, that we gave any amount of fuck whatsoever. But it was really bizarre. And I thought about that for quite a while after that. Just what is it in somebody who feels this compulsion to defend any of this bullshit? And it translates into this world that we live in today where everybody has to have an opinion about fucking everything. Absolutely everything. Ask me what my opinion is on the Ukraine-Russia. I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah, what is your opinion on all that?
On Ukraine-Russia?
Yeah.
I don't have one. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't affect me in any way, and I don't care. That is my opinion on that. I don't know anything about the history of those two countries. I have no idea what the reason for the animosity is, and I don't have an opinion.
Well, you at least hope that win or lose, both teams have fun, right?
The Russians and Ukrainians or the people that are defending one side or the other. I hope they all have fun. Or Israel and Palestine. Ask me what my opinion on Israel and Palestine is. Yeah. I got very, very strong opinions about that.
What are your strong opinions on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
I have no idea. I don't give a fuck. Those are my opinions.
I passionately don't give a fuck.
I very passionately don't give a fuck. And you know who else doesn't have any idea what is happening with any of those? All the people who are loudest with their opinions.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
And I learned all of this very early on with this woman who just felt so compelled she had to defend Bill Clinton. And again, that was a wake up moment for me. I'm just like,
and the conversation ceased when you asked her a certain question that she didn't have anything to come back at you with.
No, but here's the thing. Where was she getting her? That's what I want to know. Where was she getting her information at the time where she knew it was this whole right-wing conspiracy? I mean, she wasn't getting that from TV. She was getting newsletters from somebody or something.
Maybe robocalls. Those were a thing in the 90s.
You think they were just calling up their donors? And she wasn't a donor. She was a Wendy's employee. What was she doing? But that's just the thing. You're working at Wendy's, lady, defending this guy you will never meet in your life who doesn't give two fucks about you. What are you doing? And getting like mad about it, legit angry about it. Why? And there's too many people like that today.
The answer to your question, why, 1984 already covered this. They make you want to be passionate about one side or the other, and you get rabbled up about it. It's what people do. Yeah,
but back then it was more in the closet than it is today. Nowadays it's just, a way of life. You just expect that all the time.
You
On
do
social media, nobody can shut the fuck up about anything. Everybody's an expert all the time. Everybody's defending their favorite politicians. It's so dumb. But anyway.
Yeah, and as this calendar year progresses, it's only going to get worse and thicker and more unavoidable.
And everybody builds their tribes around defending certain politicians, which is crazy to me.
I don't talk about politics with like anybody anymore, but 4 years ago or more, when I still kind of did, I would tell people, hey, I understand your argument. Voting for the lesser of two evils still means something. Let's try to fix what's wrong with the system from within the system, which I still think is impossible. Maybe that's because I'm cynical, but I always end the conversation usually ends with me telling people, look, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils, because as soon as I vote, I then can never say I didn't ask for that. And as soon as whether or not I can or cannot say I didn't ask for that, that changes who I am, and I have to live with me. So, and some people will say, well, that's selfish because you're thinking about your own comfort level more than you're thinking about the kids in cages at the border because Trump, stuff like that.
Your vote isn't going to do jack shit about any of that either. And that's the thing that people don't understand. They get so wrapped up in all of this bullshit, all of this political bullshit all the time, and don't realize that getting bent out of shape about it isn't going to do a fuck of good. Nobody's listening to them. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your vote. And if your guy wins, then who cares? He's still not going to do what you want him to do. It's never going to happen.
How much does the State of the Union really depend on who is our president?
Yeah, probably very little.
Probably very little. So why do
if Trump's on the ballot, I will go and vote for him. But you know why? Not because I'm a Trump guy. Not because I believe so heavily that he's going to go and drain the swamp and make America great again. And all this utopian bullshit that all of his acolytes and supporters seem to think. He's literally the second coming of Jesus to most of these people. It's wild. I'm going to vote for him because he makes everybody, like the most loathsome people in society, absolutely batshit crazy. And I think that's fucking hilarious. I want people like this woman that I work with at Wendy's to just be driven nuts every single day because of every word that comes out of Trump's mouth. Fuck you for being so wound up all the time about your dumb politics. This is what I'm going to do to you. That's what my vote is going for. Not to fix immigration, not to build a border wall, not to fix the economy. None of that shit is going to happen.
I can't get that worked up about it anymore. Kudos to you for still being passionate about the idea of at least voting for a troll. I can't even get worked up about that anymore.
And you know what's so beautiful is that all the people who are going to the polls to do their American duty to vote against this guy, I'm essentially going there just to cancel out their vote. It means nothing. I canceled your vote.
How much would somebody have to buy your vote for to get you to vote for Biden?
Oh, I have a price. Yeah. I don't know what that is. It's pretty low.
Yeah.
I do it for like $100.
I was thinking 75, but
I do it for 75.
But adjust for inflation from last election cycle.
Sure.
Yeah, 100.
I do it for a case of good beer. I mean, I'm not really picky. If there is a legitimate, tangible payoff for my vote,
then it's different.
I absolutely have a price. Yeah. but that's illegal. You can't do that. All you can do as a politician is make empty promises and get people to vote for you based on that. You can't give them anything.
I wake up, I open up my laptop. I have to look at my news homepage before I go to wherever I'm going to go, check my email, and I see these super serious looking pictures of Trump and Biden. And I'm like, these guys are both like fucking 80. They can't string words together. They have no business running anything.
Trump can string words together.
And on top
What are
of
you
all
saying?
that, we've already established the person who is our president doesn't really affect much of anything at all. What about this is not stupid as fuck?
It's all stupid as fuck.
It's all stupid as fuck, and it's all data gathering. I've said it before. I'll fucking say it again. I finally came to this realization fully about a year or two ago. Election season happens not because of the election, but because the powers that be, as George Carlin puts it, the people who actually own us and run this country, they use election season as a means to gather our data for how we react and how we interact with each other. That's where the fucking money is at.
Yeah, and you can raise a lot of money that way.
That's it. That's it. It doesn't even fucking matter who wins. It's all gathering the data of what people like me and you are saying to each other right now, to some degree, but for the most part, the way people squabble about it on the internet.
Right. And pre-internet, it was none of those elements really existed.
Yeah,
It was
basically
the two parties just trying to get you to send your donation by mail. And that was it. You could sign up, you could get, their newsletter, but it wasn't just the political parties. That's going to be my second topic, by the way. I'm done talking about this part of it, but I'm going to continue on with the next aspect of that idea. Anyway, you can go ahead.
If
I said everything I needed to say.
so, did super hot California 10 Wendy's chick hear you make that joke?
Oh, I'm sure. No way.
What if she had? Do you think she would have laughed? Do you think she would have been like, "That's funny"?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's the thing about the 90s. You didn't know how anybody was going to react to anything. And that was the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You didn't have to squabble. You didn't have to tiptoe around people and make sure you weren't making the wrong jokes. Otherwise, you get your social media accounts banned and just dumb bullshit like that.
Speaking of making the wrong jokes, my topic is Chris Rock. But let me give a little bit of a foreword, a little bit of a preamble. Last week I brought in Dennis Leary, and I mentioned I'm going to bring in Dennis Leary, Chris Rock, and one more comedian who were my trifecta, my three main favorite comedians of the 90s. I didn't fully get to my point about Dennis Leary. The point I really wanted to get to for mindfulness' sake was he gave me peace of mind. I think that's the real point that I wanted to drive home at the end of everything I said about Dennis Leary. Because he was so agitated all the time. I said something to the effect of the way he sounded when he ranted and raved in his stand-up comedy sounded like my inner voice, sounded like my inner monologue when I'm aggravated about stuff. And that's what made me decide he was my spirit animal for a long time. It gave me peace of mind knowing somebody out there is like me. That's a big deal when you're me. I think it's a big deal to everybody, but it was a really big deal to me. Dennis Leary helped to give me peace of mind knowing that
you could have been that woman at Wendy's. That's what you're saying. You could have been all wound up like her.
No, me and Dennis Leary were agitated about the right stuff, about the correct stuff. It's different.
Yeah, but if he wasn't agitated at all, you would have been wound up without any kind of outlet.
Oh, okay. Dennis Leary might have saved me from turning into that lady.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you, Dennis Leary, for preventing a mindless version of me from entering into adult society in 2000. Thanks, buddy.
Because that's what they did, and they all glommed onto politics. That was the new religion. If you didn't have any other kind of institution that you belonged to, like a church or some kind of women's organization or something like that.
If you lived in Waco, you definitely had something to belong to in the 90s.
Sure. But that is more reputable than getting involved in politics. Yeah. For sure.
Agreed. Chris Rock, and I'm gonna explain this more and more as I do this topic. I think Chris Rock kind of showed me courage. Dennis Leary was all about peace of mind and being a fellow grumbly ranter raver. I think Chris Rock, at the end of the day, as far as mindfulness goes, he mostly showed me courage. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. Okay, so Chris Rock. My first exposure to him was 93, 94 time frame. He did that movie CB4. Do you remember that movie?
No.
CB4, Cell Block 4, that movie was fucking hilarious. It had a really kick-ass soundtrack. The soundtrack was mostly like regular serious rap songs, but also 3 or 4 of the songs were funny rap songs that were from the movie. Like, I'm Black, Y'all. You don't remember that? I'm blackity black and I'm black, y'all. Sweat from my balls. Sweat from my balls. You can feel it. You don't remember that? Or straight.
I vaguely remember that one.
Straight out of Low Cash, a crazy motherfucker named Gusto. Okay, just making sure somebody wasn't telling me that my sound was fucked up or anything. There was that movie, which you got to go back and watch that now. That movie fucking smoked.
I only know Chris Rock from Saturday Night Live.
Really? And I
From
didn't.
the 90s?
And I didn't know him from Saturday Night Live.
That's all I knew him from.
It was when he left the cast.
Well, and stand-up, too, of course.
Stand-up. It was when he left the SNL cast after having been on the cast for 3 or 4 seasons that he did CB4, and then he started guest appearing on In Living Color as a reoccurring character named Cheap Pete. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Cheap Pete?
Yeah.
The one that sticks in my head after all these, well, a few of them do, but my favorite one that sticks in my head after all these years was, how much is it for this can of soda? It's 50 cents. 50 cents? Good Lord, that's a lot of money. How about I give you 5 cents, you shake it up and let me lick the fizzies? And he's like, no. And he's like, all right. Me and Diley have quoted that a million times. Just a million times. Unfortunately, I think Chris Rock was doing like a guest appearing until he could become a full cast member type of thing for In Living Color, trying to ease his way in. Then the show got canceled. Mm. It was in the 5th season, and they got canceled after season 5. So
Chris Rock would have breathed new life into that show, though.
I think so. Yeah.
No, I remember him as Nat X. That shit was fucking hilarious. He'd always do his like top 10 list and then top 10 reasons black people don't play hockey, don't want to be around white people with sticks, don't want to be around white people with masks, don't feel we need to dominate another sport.
When he came back to host for the first time after leaving the cast, it was during the time period when like Sherry O'Terry was on the cast. She came on as Tori Spelling. And his first thing he said was, sit your rich white ass down. And I'm like, he's still got it. He's hosted three times since he's left the cast. Anyways, so after CB4 and his appearances on In Living Color, I definitely knew who he was. I was all about Chris Rock. I'm like, that guy's hilarious. His jokes are good, and his delivery is just something special. Like, he's got that. He found a good gimmick for how he delivers his jokes, and it works really well. And then I didn't see him or hear from him again until 96 when he put out a stand-up special called Bring the Pain. Bring the Pain was his first like full-hour HBO stand-up special. And it was...
And again, HBO back then is where all the stand-ups, you knew you made it with HBO.
That's absolutely it. Yep. And I'm just like, this is next level. This is so fucking funny. Like, he's not just...
He was next level, yeah.
He's not just funny for all the reasons I previously thought. He's also really insightful. He's great at socio-political commentary. He's great at just talking about people and what people do. And a lot of his relationship stuff, honestly, kind of got me... Chris Rock gave us street smarts. Chris Rock broke down street smarts in a way that everyone could understand, including my dumb ass, which is important. I had to get it from somewhere. Where else was I going to get it in Amherst? Not my brother. My brother took too much joy in watching me proceed in life and fail and fall down because I didn't have enough street smarts to know how to not fall down. He loved that shit. So, on behalf of me and Chris Rock, fuck you, brother. That's
how you learn street smarts. By getting your ass knocked down over and over again.
Yeah, but in the middle of nowhere in Amherst, like once you get knocked down,
Yeah, Amherst was soft.
once you get up, you're like, what
Even
am
I felt tough in
what am I
Amherst.
going to do different this time now that I'm back on my feet? I don't know. So yeah, where am I at here? I feel like going back to the brave thing, the courage thing that I initially mentioned, I feel like a lot of his jokes he would say, despite the fact that people might hate him. He would say a lot of jokes to poke fun at his own culture. A lot of people are going to be like, ooh, shouldn't have said that one when it comes to like relationship stuff and black culture and all that stuff. Like he said it anyways. He kind of bet on himself and he kind of said like, with my comedy, I'm not going to leave any elephants in the room. I'm going to go for it or I'm going to go home. And it made him famous and it got him a lot of money. Speaking of Chris Rock's money, before the show today, I looked up his net worth on Google. The result that I found said 60 million. I'm like, that seems low. So it might be a bit inaccurate because I feel like he has to be worth more than 60 million, but also he got divorced. So,
Oh, well,
multiply that by 2. That's the amount that some would say he should have. As I'm doing this Google search, right below it, it said, because it was like a commonly asked question by people who look up the same thing. Who's the richest comedian in America? You want to guess what the answer was?
Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Seinfeld.
Of course.
$925 million.
Yeah.
That guy's worth just shy of $1 billion.
Yep. I knew that.
Jerry effing Seinfeld, man. What's the deal with all that money? So
He did not do a lot of socio-political commentary at all.
he really didn't. He kept it a little more digestible, I guess one might say. I mean, Chris Rock's second or third stand-up special was called Never Scared. I mean, that right there says that he was a brave guy. He was willing to... here's a quintessential example of what I'm talking about. It was at the end of his third or fourth comedy special. He's like, a lot of you couples here, you have to realize that if your wife turns and looks at you, and she looks at you kind of funny, and I'm totally butchering this joke, it's because you weren't her first choice. And like the crowd kind of halfway laughs and halfway gasps. And he's basically said, oh yeah, I said it. I'm going to go. And I'm like, wow, he really did go ahead and say that. He saved that for relatively the end of the stand-up special because he probably knew he shouldn't set the tone early on with a joke like that, because it's probably true for a lot of people who were there. But that's funny and it's pretty brave. And I'm like, wow, maybe if this guy...
Is it that brave if you do it at the end of the show, not at the beginning, though?
Still brave to do it. Well, now you blew my mind because I'm trying to come up with a comeback for that and I've got nothing, which is why I'm not a stand-up comic. I didn't care about Lil Penny or the No Sex in the Champagne Room stuff. That's what started to get him into the mainstream. Maybe,
what were those?
Maybe about 1997. There was a series of commercials, probably for Sprite, if I'm recalling, featuring Anthony Hardaway, who went by Penny Hardaway. That was his nickname. And then he was a weird little puppet, like a marionette kind of thing, called Lil Penny. He was just a tiny little version of Hardaway, but it was voiced by Chris Rock. And I'd go to school and people would be like, oh, did you see the Lil Penny cartoon commercial? And I'm just like, yeah, who gives a shit? It wasn't really funny. That wasn't needle moving comedy to me, so I didn't care. And
People were having conversations in the halls about a commercial.
It came up, yeah. Especially since in my grade there were a lot of jocks, like a lot of jocks. If you didn't play basketball in my graduating class, you weren't shit. And the No Sex in the Champagne Room thing, you familiar with that one?
No. It was another commercial.
It was released, I think he put out one of his hour-long comedy specials as a comedy CD, and it was like a bonus track at the end. It wasn't really a song. It was like light R&B music playing while he did a bit a very slowly delivered comedy bit about how if you go to a strip club, you might get invited into the champagne room, and there might be indicators that you can have sex in the champagne room, but let me assure you, there's no sex in the champagne room. That was the conceit of the joke, and it was just this like 3 or 4 minute thing where he talks about that. And I'm like, that's mildly amusing. It made him a lot more popular, got his name out there because everybody fucking loved it. And people would be talking about Chris Rock and the no sex in the champagne room thing. I'm like, yeah, but did you see Bring the Pain? Did you see Bigger and Blacker?
Okay, but
that stuff's actually funny.
Here's the stuff that works though. Have you ever made something that you thought was like really super great, and then you put it out into the world and it's crickets? But then you do something that's really, you're just kind of half-assing it. It's not that great as far as you're concerned. You put it out there and everybody thinks it's so cool and it's the greatest thing.
Yes, absolutely.
That happens to me all the fucking time.
Yeah.
All the stuff that I think is really hilarious and worthy never is, as far as the wider society goes.
So to some degree,
it's not surprising.
Yeah,
it's not surprising.
To some degree, stuff is not merit based. It's largely about what people are in the mood for.
It absolutely is merit based, but you just have to realize that most people just have a very very handicapped view of comedy. Let's just put it that way, because that's really what it is.
Is that why Kevin Hart is so popular?
Yeah, that's exactly why Kevin Hart is so popular. I've said this a million times. Whatever special that he put out on Netflix, this was like 5 years ago, I sat down and started watching that. And after like 3 minutes into this whole bit about walking out of his house and down his dark driveway to get his garbage can to bring the garbage up, I was so fucking bored. I just shut it off right there. And I was like, I can't watch this dumb shit. But everybody in the audience is going nuts for it. I don't get it, but whatever. That's what people like. People have a very stunted... The same people who are getting angry that you're saying bad things about their favorite politician are the people who don't have any concept of what is actually funny. That's true. That's absolutely true. Find the most politically outraged person you know, and I guarantee they have no sense of humor whatsoever.
And they probably enjoy the stand-up comedy stylings of Carlos Mencia.
He might even be too edgy for most of those people.
So, Chris Rock is my favorite living comedian. And he is my second favorite comedian of all time. I'm not sure if I mentioned who I'm bringing in next week. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But
well, it's kind of obvious. You just said living comedian.
It's probably rather obvious from any amount of context clues people might have seen about me and my life, which comedian I'm bringing in next week. But next week is my favorite of all time, someone who's no longer with us. But Chris Rock is my favorite living comedian, and I've been a concert goer, a comedy. By the way, today happens to be the 6-year anniversary of the time I saw Anthony Jeselnik at the Barrymore in Madison.
He's funny.
That's some of the hardest I've ever laughed at a live comedy show because he's just so good. I was second row because it was GA and I got there a little bit early. I was second row. The pictures I took of him were actually good, even from my shitty cell phone. Yeah, very good show. Such a fucking hilarious guy. Anyways, all these years of going to concerts, I've been waiting for Chris Rock to come around. Desperately waiting for him to come around. I want to say he played in Milwaukee a decade ago, give or take. And I knew about the show ahead of time and it was going to be in like mid-March. And I'm like, I'd better not buy a ticket and commit to this ahead of time because mid-March, you still don't know what the weather's going to do. And I told people that. And some people are like, oh yeah, good point. And other people are like, you're such a wiener. Really? You're going to not go and see your favorite living comedian just because you think it might snow?
That's Wiener-y.
In mid-March?
They're right. It's Wiener-y.
There was a fucking blizzard that day.
So what?
There was a blizzard that day. I don't want to deal with a blizzard. Even if I would have made it to and from the show alive, I wouldn't have been in the mood for a comedy show because Milwaukee is 2.5 fucking hours from here. So I'm like, I made the right call. I made the right call for me. I don't have 4-wheel drive.
I drove in a blizzard to see a Packer game one time, and it happened to be Mike McCarthy's last Packer game. He got fired after this Packer game, and so I'm so glad that I went.
What year
It was
was
historic.
What year was that?
Oh, that was like, 4 years ago?
Okay. So, and I've been waiting and waiting for Chris Rock to come back around again, and then 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
You just had to go there in a blizzard. Just stay the night. Just drive down there and stay the night.
It was a little over 2 years ago, the slap heard around the world happened with him and Will Smith, obviously. And because everyone was just talking about him, it kind of reminded me like, oh man, I wonder if Chris Rock is going to be touring anytime soon. I looked up his tour dates. He was touring. He had released a bunch of tour dates already that I somehow went under my radar. I'm like, oh, wow. And I'm looking at the closest he was going to come to Wisconsin was just outside of the Twin Cities. And tickets were really fucking expensive. They were like $150 for the cheap ones. I'm like, that's insane.
It's starting to become the norm, though.
It is starting to become the norm. I started looking at his other tour dates. I'm like, this is something that I would, under the right circumstances, I'd be willing to travel a little bit farther than I normally would for a show for. And it's always been in the back of my head for a very, very long time. I want to go to Cleveland someday, see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's what ended up happening. I looked at his Cleveland ticket prices. He was doing 2 nights in a row. One of them was sold out. One of them still had some tickets left. Tickets were like $67 plus fees. I'm like, is this some sort of typo? Why the fuck is Minnesota charging 2.5 times that much for the exact same show?
Well, have you been to Cleveland? It's a fucking dump. It's a demilitarized zone. Nobody's got money there.
I think drinking the local Cleveland water actually gave me extremely explosive diarrhea, but
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, I'm almost, I don't know what else would have done it, so I'm pretty sure it was the fact that I drank water from the water fountain that was like right by Lake, would that be Erie? Or it's not Huron. Whatever Great Lake it's by. I'm like, yeah, it's probably why. I was a dumbass and I filled up my empty Gatorade bottle with an entire quart of this water that was right by the shore. That water was probably only meant for people to wash their hands in, and yeah. That's what I get for saving $1 or trying to save $1.
I won't drink city water. Anytime I'm in any city, I won't drink the tap water.
Especially if the city is Cleveland. Yeah, I learned my lesson.
I'd rather drink out of a mud puddle in Mexico than drink Cleveland tap water.
So I did this insane trip where inside of 48 hours, I drove from Madison to Cleveland and back, went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, saw Chris Rock. There have only been 3 shows I've ever been to where I was forced to put my cell phone into one of those locked mesh bags where you cannot access it for the entirety of the show. And then you have to wait in line in a big mob of people after the show to the person with the unlocking mechanism to unlock it. Mm-hmm. Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and when we went to Bill Burr. Those are the only 3 times that's ever happened. The show was fantastic. The show was absolutely out of this world. It was him touring and warming up the material that would eventually become Selective Outrage, which is his special that he put out.
Well, what's your absolute favorite Chris Rock from the 90s? We're talking a lot about modern day Chris Rock.
I took that a little bit too far, but I just wanted to establish I finally got to see him, finally knocked him off my bucket list, and I'm so happy. But
when was this?
A year and 8 months ago was when I went to Cleveland and I saw him.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna. I was gonna.
I thought you meant like it was just like the last 6 months or something.
Oh no, I wish. And he finally addressed the Will Smith slap, and he did it in a really glorious, hilarious way. My absolute favorite Chris Rock joke or bit from the 90s, probably the tossing salads thing.
Which one was that?
It was on his 96 special, Bring the Pain. He's talking about watching an...
No. Not excluding his stand-up. Because I think stand-up is just its own thing.
Okay,
That's its own art form.
What was your question then?
Just your favorite bit, but I meant like in a sketch kind of setting.
Oh.
Like, so in Living Color he only did really the one thing in Living Color.
He only did Cheap Pete, which I've already established is comedy gold. I really loved what he did in CB4. I really loved Sweat of My Balls. That shit was hilarious. But you didn't see it. Oh.
What was that your favorite?
I think my favorite comedy skit that I've ever seen him in from SNL was the All I Want to Do Is Suck Your Big Toe music video. It was like a parody of Jodeci type of groups.
Yeah.
That shit was hilarious. The whole skit was funny, but his part in particular was really, really funny. I want to say the host of that episode was either Joe Pesci or Christina Applegate. It was right around 92, maybe early 93. Anyways, I wanted to mention Chris Rock hosted the MTV Video Music Awards. I want to say it was 97, maybe 98. And that was when Marilyn Manson performed The Beautiful People, and he was wearing this get-up where, like, every time he turned around, you could just see 100% of his pale white ass cheeks. So that got some controversy. That got some buzz going. That was also the VMAs.
Which is all he did back then. So whatever.
But the fact that he did it on TV was a little bit like,
the boomers were.
The people that Corey worked with at Wendy's are going to be really mad about this one. No, that lady would have. Yeah, no, yep.
Yeah, she would have been.
She would have been mad about that. And the other thing that VMAs was known for was Fiona Apple doing an acceptance speech where she said, "This world is bullshit," and she just kind of went off on a little.
Oh, where she was really drunk.
Was that what it was?
I think so.
Like,
I think she was drunk.
A good 20, 30 seconds of just kind of like tangenting about stuff that didn't matter, and she quoted Maya Angelou at one point, and then later on in this show, Chris Rock was like, if Maya Angelou's at home watching right now, she's like, who's that little white girl saying my name? I feel like that was the birth of the tradition of every year at the VMAs, people wondering what juicy, buzzworthy thing is going to happen this year. I think that was like the first year that became a thing. And Chris Rock was there for it. And I mentioned that Tossin' Salads was like my favorite bit from any of his stand-ups. And my favorite thing that he has ever said in a stand-up special that was more serious than funny was, it wasn't from something from the 90s, so I'm cheating here again, but it was like a 2004 stand-up special. He said, Republicans are fucking idiots. Democrats are fucking idiots. Anybody who makes up their mind on a topic before they hear it is a fool. And I'm like, yes, that's what I have thought forever and ever. I love it. It just kind of re-solidified him as my favorite living comedian.
Yeah, that's how smart people think.
Mindful, considerate people. Again, courage. It takes courage to say something like that. It takes a special kind of person to say that and just be like, yeah, I said it. So kudos to him. Chris Rock. That's it.
All right. I think my favorite thing was Nat X. I just think everything that he did with that character was just so fucking hilarious. And it was basically just dumping on late night TV. And I appreciated that.
I, without question, have a Nat X trading card in here. Yeah. Didn't take me long.
Nice. Here, give it here. I'll put it right up by the camera. Look at that motherfucker.
Get that card down.
So black he goes to funerals naked. So black lightning bugs follow him in the day. So black he urinates oil. So black he could be Navy. And then it's got a picture of him. That was the white man cam.
Oh yeah, white man cam. Get me out of here! I didn't do nothing. I want my lawyer.
Shit was hilarious.
Shit was hilarious. I wonder if there's another one in here somewhere. Doesn't matter. Anyways.
Of another character or another Nat X?
Another Nat X. I think some of the really popular reoccurring skits got more than one card, but I'd have to go through it.
All right. My last topic today was a continuation off the last one that I did. Being influenced by radical right-wing media. And not just radical right-wing media, but conspiracy media in the 90s. There was a little magazine that my dad used to get called the New American Magazine.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, you were watching TV. You weren't reading. I would sit on the couch and just bored out of my mind because there was never anything on TV. Like, I feel like and I don't know if it's just because I had reached a certain age where I was just bored by everything on TV, but I would say by 96, I think from 96 to the end of the decade, I didn't watch TV at all. So anything that you're talking about, TV related, anything wrestling, anything SNL, anything Simpsons, any of that shit, I just wasn't watching it. I didn't watch TV. I'd watch the Packer games and that was about it.
Wow.
So, and my dad didn't have TV. He lived out in the middle of the woods. So there was no cable or anything. Yeah. It was just whatever was on the networks. And that was all boring as shit most of the time. So what would I do when I'm bored at home and I'm not playing a computer game or playing my guitar or listening to music? I was reading. That's all there was to do in the middle of nowhere. And I used to get this magazine called New American Magazine. What this was a very, you would call it very right-wing, pro-Second Amendment, pro-Constitution, one of these types of magazines. I thought I still had some sitting around somewhere in my basement, just forgotten. I have no idea where they were because I wanted to show some off.
Ah, crud.
Yeah, but it was really, when people think of right-wing media, they think of, what do you think of when somebody says right-wing media? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Alex Jones.
You would consider Alex Jones right-wing?
Yeah.
What about mainstream media, though?
Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson.
Okay, yeah, sure. Sure, guys like that. Well, New American Magazine was further to the right by miles than even these guys.
Impressive.
It is impressive. So what it was a very strict constitutionalist kind of magazine. So everything came kind of from that perspective. And they talked about a lot of New World Order shit. And but what I appreciated about it, the most interesting thing that I found about it was they would have these articles that go into depth of different political philosophies. So fascism. Now, surprise, surprise, most of the people who declare that you're a fascist because you disagree with them have no idea what actual fascism is. The people who, the Antifa people who call themselves anti-fascists, guarantee you 99.999% of those people have no idea what actual fascism is. So the actual Mussolini type of fascism. Well, this magazine went into a lot of detail that talked about different political philosophies. Now, reading through this definitely didn't entertain, I guess, form a lot of my political thinking in that direction, in a right-wing direction necessarily. The value that I got out of it was just learning all of these different political philosophies, beginning with their philosophy and what they think is the best political philosophy, whatever.
It lays groundwork so you can actually be informed with your decision making.
Sure. But what it really did was give me this view of politics where I began to realize, and the magazine itself never came out and did this. This was probably coupled with a lot of smoking pot at the time. Let's be honest. I mean, I would get fucking high and sit there and read New American Magazine. And holy shit, that's great, because then you have a million thoughts going through your head with every word that comes off the page, whatever. But what dawned on me eventually is that there's really only two political philosophies that exist and have always existed the entire history of mankind. That is
capitalism and communism.
No, those are economic systems. I'm just thinking of systems of government, systems of control, so to speak.
Okay.
One school of thought says that you are an individual human being who owes nothing to any other human being. You have all the rights, all rights that exist to you as a human being are yours. The only right you do not have is violating the rights of another human being. There is that political philosophy. And on the other end is the political philosophy that says everything must be controlled and orchestrated and moved in certain ways to provide maximum benefit for all people.
The collective.
The collective view, right. So one side says individual human beings working in their best interest will provide the greatest benefit for all of mankind. And the other side says that that's not true. Every political philosophy that everybody holds falls in there somewhere on that spectrum. Doesn't matter if it's republicanism or democratism or Nazism or fascism, communism, whatever. They all fall somewhere in that spectrum. That's all there is.
Yeah, sure.
So that is the foundation, I think, from which I kind of developed my political thinking as I went on, and why I just don't give a shit about any of it today. I think that's ultimately the outcome, because you realize, well, it doesn't matter. Conservatives and progressives are all trying to do the same thing. They're trying to modify your behavior and make you do certain things and basically use the government to make people do that.
They want to make you afraid of the same shit they're afraid of at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's all it comes down to. Or they think a lot of them have utopian ideas, and they think that the utopia can be brought about, with enough guns and cages and whatever else.
Or with enough participation trophies.
But that's not the point of this. That's just to say New American was a very good magazine back in the day. It was my first exposure to what would be considered radical.
Okay.
Radical ways of thinking. And what it did for me personally was give me a taste for radical or subversive ways of thinking. The one thing that reading stuff like that, and it doesn't have to be political. In this case, it was political. But what reading has done for me that nothing else has ever been able to do for me is when you read a new thought, when your brain has a new thought, and you realize that you are never going to be able to look at the world the same again with this new mind virus that has just entered your brain, I find that exhilarating for whatever reason. When the way I look at the world has been completely shifted and turned upside down in a way where I'm like, oh, fuck, I can't ever unsee this. And now I'm doomed to carry this around with me forever and ever. That's what New American magazine did for me. And
are you going to give us a for example here?
Like what? What do you mean?
A particular specific instance of something that entered your brain like a virus from this magazine?
Oh, no, what I just got done explaining about how everything is essentially comes in this form or this form, and everything is shades in between. That was the first thought that I was just like, oh, fuck. I had never thought of the world that way before as a teenager reading this magazine.
Okay.
Whereas in school, anytime you're learning anything about civics related topics or politics, it's always about, well, Democrats are trying to do blah, 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 and Republicans are trying to do blah, 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 blah. But it's never questioned whether they should even exist, right? Whether a constitution should even exist, whether a republic as a form of government should even exist. That is never, ever called into question. It's just, this is how it is. Okay. And you're expected to, maybe you believe in 41.2% taxes, or maybe you believe in 33.9% taxes. But that's all you're really allowed to believe. You're allowed to operate within that way of thinking.
Yeah.
And most people today operate within that little confined box of thinking.
Yep.
So
by tradition or what have you.
Yeah, it is. It really is just existing on the fumes of its own velocity through history. That's all it is. So that was the first time I'd ever, and then from there, I kind of got a taste for seeking out subversive literature. And it wasn't just right-wing, it was left-wing literature too. And so I was reading a lot of left-wing anarchist political thought, Emma Goldman, people like that I thought were fucking fascinating. And again, these people they would introduce little
imprints.
Yeah. I think of it like The Death of a Thousand Cuts, where
oh, sure,
my brain was fully intact in the same way that I'm supposed to think about things in the culture that I live in. But then slowly over time, I just had all these little cuts to it to where it's no longer the same brain even. I can't look at the world the same way anymore.
So this magazine you're talking about, the Mussolini Times or whatever you said it's called.
Yeah. The New American Magazine, which, by the way, the New American Magazine.
I was just going to ask, was it a thick magazine? That's what I wanted to know.
It was a standard. It was like Time Magazine or anything else.
And it's just full of column-style writings?
Sure. Yeah. It was all like news articles. They would talk about current events. Oh, they hated Bill Clinton, of course. And it was all shit like, what was the conspiracy shit back then? FEMA camps, maybe? Black helicopters were a big thing. Secret government police agencies. And by the way, like the secret government police agencies, like those exist. Like we've known about this shit for forever. But back then it was still considered a conspiracy theory. People couldn't talk about it. New American Magazine. And I know somebody who had some today, and I was like, oh shit, I remember this. I used to read this as a kid. I haven't read anything from it since the late 90s. But, I started kind of thumbing through it, and I'm just like, oh, it's just kind of like your standard conservative rag now. Maybe it's not. Maybe it has always been the standard conservative rag, but because I was never exposed to that way of thinking before, maybe I just thought it was new and interesting back then. Whatever.
And you were 17, 18-ish?
More like
you
16.
said from 96 to 2000 you pretty much didn't watch any TV. So I'm doing the math in my head of how old you were.
Yeah, so I would have been like 16, 17 at the time.
Yeah.
So here's the other part of it though. It wasn't just New American Magazine. So that talked a lot about the political aspect of things. This is me going into Wendy's and making a joke about Monica Lewinsky, not thinking that people took these people seriously, because they're all fucking clowns. They're all just like these evil clowns. It's wild to me. But
ain't it?
But there was also a lot of conspiracy shit that I was exposed to back in the 90s, and they were all on VHS tape. So I remember watching VHS tapes. Oh, the very first one I saw must have been 93 or 4. And I don't remember what the name of it was. It was something like Iron Mountain, the Blueprint for Tyranny, or something like that. It had a really Alex Jones type of title. Everybody thinks the conspiracy shit started with Alex Jones. Well, no, it didn't. The stuff was going around even in the early 90s. And it all came on VHS tape. I have in my hands one from 1996. This one is a...
You found that when you were looking for issues of the magazine?
Yeah, well, I got this. My dad was like clearing shit out of his out of his house, and he just gave me a bunch of VHS tapes, and this one happened to be in the box.
Obstruction of justice.
Obstruction of justice, the Mina connection. Now, what this is, well, here, I'll just read a little bit of the back to you. Oh. 2 teenage boys stumble upon a major drug smuggling operation. The boys are brutally murdered and their bodies placed on a railroad tracks to give the appearance of a train accident. Ooh, what's going on? This is like true crime shit.
Yeah.
Soon thereafter, half a dozen witnesses to the crime are found dead. So all kinds of crazy shit is happening around this.
Cough, Hillary.
Why are so many state, county, and federal government investigations blocked? Why is a 30-month federal grand jury investigation abruptly shut down? It's got this list of questions. You're going to answer all the questions. The story of murder, drugs, corruption, and cover-up involves high-ranking government officials reaching up to the most powerful office in the world. It shows that interference from sinister political allies continues to protect these criminals from prosecution. Well, somehow Clinton, I believe, was tied into this somehow. Again, I saw this as a teenager. I don't really remember anything about it. I'll have to go back and watch it now that I got the VHS tape. But there was a lot of this shit that was going on back then, and I am positive this is how Alex Jones got going. This was... Alex Jones grew up... he was probably exposed to all this shit, too, at some point, and decided that he was going to become... the biggest of this, whatever this is, whatever movement this belongs to, Alex Jones decided he was going to build the biggest of that.
He reached for the stars. He reached for those Mussolini stars.
So I guess from a mindfulness perspective, I guess what stuff like this did for me, and look, I don't, FEMA camp shit, and I'm going to go back and try to find that Iron Mountain one from way back when, because I want to rewatch it and see how much of that shit actually came true. That would be very interesting to me in 2024. Because as a kid, you watch it and you're like, oh, wow, you automatically assume this shit is true because it's in a documentary. Why wouldn't it be true?
Yeah.
So
give it the benefit of a doubt. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't just write it off. If you're an adult and you are of a particular political persuasion, you are absolutely just writing this shit off. But as a kid watching this, you find it very fascinating. But what it does to you as a kid is it puts you in a mindset where you're not taking any of this shit seriously, where all of these people that you see at the highest levels of government are just doing their own shit. They don't give a fuck about you. They're all just trying to control shit. They're trying to bring about their great leap forward, whatever they're trying to do. They're just trying to get more power any way they can and shove all their crimes under the rug. That's what I learned as a kid in the 90s. And so when I'm making fun of Bill Clinton, I don't understand why people get mad. When I'm ripping on George W. Bush during the War on Terror as a young adult, I don't understand why people are getting mad. Because I just assume that all these people are just fucking evil. For a long time,
evil clowns.
I held the belief that the only way you became president was you had to stack some bodies along the way. I just assumed that was the way it was because of all the conspiracy shit. So, what else was there?
And this magazine is still going on?
New American's still going on, but I think like I said, it's
amazing.
Just
amazing.
It's really just kind of a conservative magazine. I don't think there's anything in there that progressives would find particular. It's put out by something called the John Birch Society, which is an organization that progressives hate as much as the name Ayn Rand. It holds that kind of loathsome.
Right on.
So, yeah, anyway, I guess that's pretty much the only thing that I wanted to bring in as far as that goes. I can see how a lot of people who grew up on CNN and Fox News and that kind of shit, it's very obvious they all kind of think the same way. And the people who just grew up on subversive material, who find great joy in doing that, just can't take any of that shit seriously. It's people will call this shit conspiracy and fake and everything else, but literally something like Fox News or CNN is as real as wrestling is to me.
Yeah.
I don't take any of it seriously. So, because you start to realize there are always ulterior motives going on behind the scenes, always, in everything. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Everyone's got an angle.
But it's important to learn all that shit at a young age. Whether this conspiracy shit is true or not, I don't give a fuck, because it doesn't affect my life one way or another. If the government decides to start rounding up people into FEMA camps tomorrow, then it'll become an issue for me. But just hearing somebody talk about what the government might do at any given moment, I don't care. It doesn't matter. But what it does do is it trains you to realize everybody is operating out of their own self-interests. And if you are in
Your
a
own
position,
values, yeah.
when you're in a position of a lot of wealth and a lot of power, that doesn't change. They don't suddenly Barack Obama isn't suddenly a good person because he became president. He's still operating on all of the things that he was operating on before he became president. Same with George Bush, same with Donald Trump, same with all of these people. Yeah. It's all the same shit. All of these people would have shit themselves had they known about any of this stuff back then. And I just mean shit themselves in the sense that they wouldn't have believed it. They would have just been angry, like this lady at Wendy's, that you're picking on their favorite president. I would like to hear what this lady has to say about Epstein's Island and Clinton seeming to love to fly out there. That's just the thing, though, that we know now that there is this giant cabal of very wealthy and powerful people who maintained an island where they were sex trafficking children, and yet they'll still look at something like this and be like, no way, no way. People wouldn't do that. People would never do that. That's how fucking disconnected people are within even their own brains, and that's wild to me. Epstein's Island shit didn't surprise me at all. At all. But whatever.
Epstein. Oh, you mean that guy who totally didn't kill himself?
Oh, yeah. He didn't kill himself.
Zero chance. Is New American Magazine the first time you ever heard the phrase voluntarism? I'm just curious.
No.
No? Okay.
No. All that shit came way, way later.
Later? Okay.
Oh, way later, yeah.
Oh, well.
All the 90s did was give me a taste for wanting to know more about political thought that you didn't bring up in polite society. Things that you didn't talk about, ideas that you didn't talk about
at work.
If I'm with a bunch of conservatives and I'm like, yeah, I think they should just burn the Constitution and fuck it all, break up the government, and everybody can go their separate ways, they'd be like, oh, I can't believe you said that. Oh my God. So you don't say shit like that. But you read a lot of books where people suggest it. But anyway,
yeah,
that's what I got.
Do we want to check the chat?
We can look at it. The last time I looked, there wasn't anything in there.
No good conspiracies.
Some possible tech issues, but everything on my end, I was double checking it the whole time, and everything on this end looks good.
Okay.
As far as YouTube's concerned, anyway. So
I blame the damn weather if there's any kind of lag or
here buffering. For the audience, what's your favorite conspiracy theory? Jeffrey Epstein doesn't count because that doesn't count anymore as a conspiracy theory. It counted in 2005. I remember Alex Jones talking about this shit back in 2004, 2005, because I used to listen to him when I was a young
2
kid.
decades. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I would have been in my early 20s, and I would work, but this was 2000s. I'd go to work at UPS and come home at 3 o'clock in the morning and jump on my computer and play games and listen to Alex Jones. Yeah. And he was talking about this shit all the way back then. What else was he right about? I don't know.
But you know what people are going to come back at you with concerning that. Well, if you have a million conspiracy theories, some of them are liable to be true at some point.
Yeah.
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 And there's some truth to that, but I mean.
But again, I don't give a shit. I honestly don't give a shit whether they're true or not, because in 99% of the cases, you're never going to be able to, you're never going to know. Just because I think it's interesting to watch a documentary called JFK 2, where they connect George Bush Sr. as one of the shooters in the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
I just think that's interesting. Now, I don't necessarily believe it. I'm not going to die for that belief. I don't care, but it's just the idea that people are out there that are just going to shove away any unpleasant ideas that enter their heads. I was just the opposite, where somebody would offer an unpleasant idea, be like, yeah, give me that shit. I can't get enough of it.
Okay.
Because like I said before, the most exhilarating thing is having your entire worldview turned upside down. To me, anyway.
I have absolutely no segue between what you've been talking about and what my second topic is. For those who saw the artwork, the thumbnail for this episode, it's a bunch of hot dogs playing instruments in a band. That's because I have an angle. I'm on a mission, and my mission is I want to know who the most Wiener-y band of the 90s was.
The most Wiener-y band.
The most Wiener-y band. I would just define Wiener-y as pretentious and not self-aware of that pretentiousness. That's the nuts and bolts of it. That's generally what I mean by Wiener-y. You suck and you're a wiener and you're pretentious and you have
to suck too, is what you're saying.
You have to suck and your music has to be trite and watered down.
Yeah, but if you were popular, there was enough people that said you didn't suck.
Of course.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you didn't, or does it? I don't know. That's why I want this topic to turn into something that is interactive with our viewers and with anybody I can talk to about this. I want to know who other people think were the most Wiener-y bands of the 90s, because I haven't even 100% made up my mind as to who would be number one.
But you have ideas.
I have lots of ideas, yes. Before I get into that, though, I want to say, I think the most Wiener-y band of the 80s was REO Speedwagon, like number one with a bullet. They were just so Wiener-y.
Not Journey?
No, I think REO was worse. Between the hair,
Journey. I'm sorry, I meant Foreigner. I get those guys mixed up all the time.
Foreigner's songs were pretty Wiener-y sometimes, I'll admit. Jukebox Hero, Hot Blooded. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Maybe they're number 2 on the Wiener-y list.
REO Speedwagon had like Can't Fight This Feeling and Take It on the Run. Just I can
Can't
go
Fight
on.
This Feeling's a beautiful love song. How can you even say that's Wiener-y?
I feel like I might have to save that for a bonus episode where I just talk about why I think REO Speedwagon was just head and shoulders above all else when it came to Wiener-iness.
They were like the extra long hot dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Those really ridiculously hanging off the buns.
Yeah, the foot-long hot dogs.
And then after the 90s, I feel like Nickelback. Again, number one with a bullet. No one else even came close. Nickelback just redefined what it meant to be a Wiener-y fucking band. From 2000 to 2010, it was just a decade of tyrannical Wiener-iness from Nickelback. It wouldn't stop. But who was that band in the 90s? The decade in between REO Speedwagon's terroristic Wiener-iness and Nickelback's.
So does another condition have to be that they did the entire decade?
No, not necessarily.
Because REO Speedwagon did, and Nickelback pretty much did.
Nickelback is pretty much dead on. Like all of their success happened between 2000 and 2010, like all of it. Maybe a little bit into 11, but then like shortly after that, they just had no more radio hits. And REO Speedwagon they had a couple of songs in the 70s, but they were pretty definitively 80s. But who was the band for the 90s? And there doesn't seem to be...
I don't think there was anybody that did the entire
lasted decade. The whole decade. Yeah, I don't think there was. But I do still want to know who left the most Wiener-y impact. Who made the most Wiener-y noise. And so what I want to do is I'm bringing this in as a topic now, and then maybe a week or two from now, or maybe even at the end of March, I'm not sure, I want to do part 2, the conclusion. After I've talked to some people and gotten their feedback, I want to talk about the feedback that I got, and potentially, if I'm feeling ambitious, I might fantasy book a tournament. After all, March Madness is upon us pretty soon.
Yeah,
March Madness is coming. The NFL playoff season just ended a couple weeks ago. Let's do a tournament in between to give people a
March Madness of Wiener bands.
Oh, March Madness of Wiener bands, yeah.
Well, so what are you doing though? Are you just taking suggestions right now, or what?
Yeah, as ASAP.
I would put Limp Bizkit on that list immediately. Because when did they start? 97?
About, yeah.
So
about 97.
Limp Bizkit for sure.
Limp Bizkit for sure.
Nirvana for sure. I just want Nirvana on that list so fucking bad.
How do I unplug your mic here?
Hey, you said pretentious though, and being unself-aware of the pretentiousness. Come on, who is more pretentious?
Where's that flag on the
Kurt
play?
Cobain?
Why is that yellow?
Cobain.
Why is that yellow towel out of my reach?
Because it's where it belongs, right over here where you can't get to it.
Technical foul. Offense is giving me the business a little too much. Loss of 5 minutes. Still 15 minutes left of the show. Nirvana. We'll see what the fans have to say.
All right, fine. We should just put Nirvana on the list and see what the fans have to say.
So my list.
But wouldn't Pearl Jam be a better? They might be better than Nirvana. I'd have to think about it. I'll bring in one of them. Well, why not both of them though?
Again, I'm mostly going off bands who were pretentious or like, I don't know what to say other than pretentious and Wiener-y, but like with no self-awareness, or the fact that they knew exactly what they were doing, but they just doubled down on it that much more because they knew that was exactly what was making them money. It's
because Manson was kind of like that, where he doubled down. He knew what he was doing, doubled down on it.
Okay, let me try to put it in perspective by maybe just listing some of the bands that I have. Matchbox 20. That guy's singing style just seemed very Wiener-y to me, and generally the topic, the subject matter of the songs was okay. The subject matter of the songs, I'll call that a wash. I wouldn't say it was super Wiener-y, but also not the most edgy or cool or anything like that.
What was the subject matter? I just remember his Wiener-y voice.
Breakups, like every other.
That's fucking Wiener. That you can't get Wiener-y more Wiener-y than that. Like singing about that's all REO Speedwagon did. They were all breakup.
Remember how big of a fucking hit I wanna push you around?
Yeah, that song sucked.
That's like the Wiener-iest song you can. Yeah,
that's true.
Tell an AI machine make 90s song that is the Wiener-iest shit I've ever heard. It's gonna sound like that song.
Yeah, you're right.
Hootie and the Blowfish.
Even Nirvana's not that Wiener-y.
Hey, I'll drink to that.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy. Hootie and the Blowfish.
Pretty Wiener-y.
I'll put them with Matchbox 20 as in like it's mostly that vocal delivery, but also the subject matter. Songs like Hold My Hand and Let Her Cry. It's like, not the most edgy hard rock I've ever heard in my life. Kind of Wiener-y.
But that's why that stuff's so popular though, because it's not edgy at all.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to it's music for chicks. It really is. A lot of that stuff. There wasn't a lot of dudes going to Matchbox 20 concerts.
Not unless their chick wanted to go.
Yeah, well.
Hootie and the Blowfish is that music that plays like in between innings at a ball game, stuff like that.
They're only going to choose Wiener-y music for that.
Creed is almost as egregious as Limp Bizkit as far as like this guy knows.
I would put Limp Bizkit ahead of Creed.
I would too, but the first Creed album had tinges of Wiener-iness.
If you're in the chat, by the way, you can throw in your own Wiener-y band ideas.
Yes, please do. But it was that second Creed album that came out in '99 that was like, oh, these guys know that if they wiener it up a little bit more, they're going to sell a lot more. And by the way, if you go to YouTube and you type in Creed shreds and watch those videos, where they're being mocked, it kind of brings out a new essence of their wieneryness, a new dimension that the guy who overdubs his own voice really does a fantastic, otherworldly, fantastic job of making sounds that fit perfectly with the mannerisms of the lead singer and how much he's just like feeling himself a little bit too much.
Oh shit, you know what you just reminded me of? There used to be a YouTube channel, it's probably still up, but it was like this just some dude out of the trailer park that used to do karaoke, so he'd go and do karaoke and he would sing like Creed songs and stuff.
Okay.
And he would just have this scene behind him of like forests or mountains or whatever while he's belting out these creeds, and he's not doing it great. But the odd thing is, if you look at the comments section, it's all like, this is the most amazing rendition of this song I have ever heard in my life. These vocals are stunning. And it's just all comments like that. And it is hypothesized that the dude, one of these videos blew up, and of course all the trolls just flooded in there and started talking shit, and he went through and just deleted them all. But I think trolls are much better. At least I hope they are. So they filled up the comments section instead of, this is the most beautiful song I've ever heard in my life. And anyway, it reminded me of that.
That's good.
But the dude himself just seems like a Wiener-y white trash dude who would just be way into this shit. And then a few Bud Lights later and you're up on the karaoke stage.
Letting out that angst, as it were. I'm going to kind of breeze through the rest of these notes that I have because we still have... apparently Dilehey called in again during this episode, so I think he... probably, if he was willing to call during the show, he probably feels a certain kind of way about what we had to say about him at the beginning of the episode. So we're going to have to play that. But before that, okay, let me breeze through this. Def Leppard, that album that they put out in 1992 had songs like Let's Get Rocked. That's one of the most Wiener-y songs I've ever heard in my entire life. Just listen to it. You'll know what I mean. I certainly hope.
Pyromania or High and Dry or
Pyromania, Adrenalize maybe. I think the album might have been Adrenalize. It was the one after Hysteria.
Oh, Adrenalize, yeah.
Do you want to get rocked?
Oh,
like
yeah,
it was very, very intentionally.
Yeah, but Hysteria was already starting to get Wiener-y.
Starting to.
That was kind of the beginning of it.
Yeah, but the one
I used to love that album as a kid, by the way. I used to own that, Hysteria.
The one with Pour Some Sugar on Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, for sure. That 1992 album from Def Leppard, they stepped up the Wiener-iness quite a bit. So, Weezer.
That's not really. Are they just not being self-aware though, or do they know that? Because Hysteria was that was like their biggest album at the time, right? None of their other albums did as good as that one did.
The lead singer just seems so proud of himself, and that's what makes it Wiener-y to me. He just seems like, yeah, what I'm doing is cool. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Weezer, if you've ever seen the video for Undone, the Sweater song,
yeah,
it's like, these guys are pretty big fucking wieners.
Weren't they pretty self-aware about their wieneriness?
It was part of their art, but also, like, if it's just that wienery...
Because they were just making fun of...
You can't deny it.
They were just making fun of wiener bands, I thought.
Okay, maybe, yeah.
I thought they were satirizing that shit when I was a kid. That was the impression that I got from them. Maybe they were. Maybe they were just giant wieners, and I was just reading into it.
Satirizing it with, like, an approach that I always refer to as, like, the Tim and Eric style of humor, where it's, like, a little bit too sarcastic, which I think once you're too sarcastic...
then it just ceases to be sarcasm.
You horseshoe back to being the wienery thing you're making fun of.
Yeah, I guess so.
That was very profound. I'm proud of myself just now. Little horseshoe theory in there. The Offspring wasn't terribly wienery, except for when they were.
Yeah, there's too many better wiener bands on there.
That's why I'm kind of breezing through these. Like, these are the honorable mentions that might deserve a second look at a certain point. Pretty Fly for a White Guy was fucking wienery. Like, that's why they deserve to be brought up. It's like,
wasn't that purposeful too, though?
Again,
at some point,
when they're saying
a lot of these guys reached a point where they could look at the state of the music industry and just make fun of it. And I feel like that's what they were doing.
The way in which they were being satirical about the subject of the song wasn't that biting. It wasn't that stinging. It wasn't. It's actually kind of wienery, which is why I'm wondering, like, were they not quite as self-aware as maybe they thought they were? And there's a certain wienery quality when you do that. Okay, Smashing Pumpkins.
Pretty wienery. I put them on that list, yeah.
And I hesitated to put them on the list because I personally like them a lot. A lot of their songs
they're okay.
A lot of their songs fucking ruled. But especially like...
I've always thought Billy Corgan was a wiener, though.
The last album they put out in the 90s, Machina, Machine of the Gods, whatever.
I don't know.
Billy Corgan was like, let me delve a little bit further into exploring how interesting I think I am. And he got a little bit wienery. I
always thought he was a wiener in any of the interviews that I saw with him.
Yeah. He's got his moments. There's a lot of
his moments of wieneriness or not wieneriness.
Both. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, a little bit of both. That's what I'm saying.
Plus he's bald and he just looks like a big fat wiener.
Smash Mouth. They're
again though, is it wieneriness or is it?
They were essentially a ska band who more than 50% of their radio songs were covers. Okay, maybe that's not really grounds for a wieneriness.
50% of their songs were covers.
Oh, so many of them. Why Can't We Be Friends? Can't Get Enough of You, Baby.
Yeah.
Go Back, Jack. Do It Again. It was just so many fucking covers.
I don't remember that one.
That one was on the Me, Myself, and Irene soundtrack.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, if it was just on I guess it was on the radio too.
The song All Star, their biggest played hit of all time, it was essentially a pretty wienery song for what that's worth.
But it was everywhere and in everything though too. And that's probably, it doesn't get more wienery than a wiener song that's just in everything.
Yeah. And the only other ones I have are Bloodhound Gang, just because of everything they were and everything they did. It was pretty self-aware though, but I had to mention them because Dave Matthews Band, mostly just the vocal delivery, but also like their songs were just kind of happy, friendly, zero edge at all. A bit wienery. You know what I mean? Definitely get a passable grade in the wiener test.
They were good musicians though.
No, very,
they were
very
really good
musicians. And last but not least, I mentioned Ween. Ween, because good Lord, man, when I watched Beavis and Butthead as they watched the video for Push the Little Daisies, they just trashed Ween back to the Stone Age, and it was the funniest fucking thing I ever saw. When Butthead said, "These guys have no future," I fell off the fucking sofa laughing. It was difficult for Ween to redeem themselves to me in my own head after that, because they had such an uphill battle. After Beavis and Butthead give you a scathing indictment of your wieneriness, Winger never came back from that, that's for sure. And Winger did put out some wienery music in like 91, but they were mostly an 80s hair metal wiener band, so I hesitated to put them on this list.
Isn't their most famous song the She's Only 17 song?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't get any more wienery than that.
And again, the way the lead singer looked so pleased with himself in the music video for that song, I'm like, oh.
I've never even seen the music video. Now I gotta go watch it.
I didn't know wieners got bigger than a foot long. Like, this guy is premium fucking wiener. Winger. I was going to talk about him and Mike Judge and their beef that may or may not still exist, but we have to play that Dilehey, and then we have to call her quits. This episode's going to break 2 hours. Dang it.
What?
This episode's going to break 2 hours.
All right.
Hello again. You're looking well. Your podcast is on Spotify now? That's good. That's good. Let me start a podcast with your grandma. Please? Let me start a podcast with your grandma. You already said I could talk about her in my college. If you don't want me and your grandma to start a podcast, why did you want me to start talking about her in my college? Hey, don't look away. Hey, please? We could call the new podcast I'm Your Grandpa Now, because it would be kind of true. I would sort of be like your new grandpa. What's the freaking hold up? Let the boy do a podcast with your grandma. You know, would get tons of clicks on YouTube.
Oh, I thought he was going to come back in with a, please let me do it.
I'm not going to beg you.
That
I've
was-
never been more on the fence about firing Dilehey than I am right now, because I think we might have to give him one more chance, because he made us laugh. That's the point. He made us laugh. So I mean, I think Dilehey is going to be employed for at least one more week. But you're on thin ice, dude.
Better bring in something good next week. That was good. Podcasting with your grandma. That's funny. All right.
Only because she gave us the Gushers fruit snacks aforementioned.
All right. You want me to shut this off? It's 9:00. Thanks for everybody who's watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. I got to say that because I always forget to say that. Most importantly, leave your favorite conspiracy theory in the comments. And even more importantly, who is the most Wiener-y band of the 90s?
We need feedback. I'm all over the place with this thing. Help me focus.
I like Limp Bizkit, and there was somebody else that was on your list that I thought was a really good.
Smashing Pumpkins, Creed.
Oh, Smashing Pumpkins. That was it. And Creed's pretty good too. Yeah. All right. Anyway, who's the most Wiener-y band? Let us know.
Please do.
And I'm gonna take us out with the intro. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much for watching.
See you next time.
Hit us
See
up
you next week.
Tell us who is Wiener-y. Wieners, wieners, wieners.
I love a good show about wieners.